Imagine standing at the base of a mountain so massive, so intimidating, that just looking at it makes your heart race and your mind scream, I can't do this. What if I told you that mountain isn't as big as you think? What if I showed you a way to shrink that fear, that overwhelm, that doubt, and turn it into unstoppable momentum? Today, you're going to discover how to break that impossible challenge into small, manageable steps. Steps so powerful that before you know it, what once felt overwhelming will feel completely conquerable. I want you to stop for a moment and really look at the obstacle in front of you. The thing that feels so huge, so impossible, that every time you think about it, your chest tightens and your mind screams, I can't do this. Now, here's the truth. The size of the problem is never the real issue. The mountain only feels insurmountable because of the story you've been telling yourself about it. It's the meaning you've attached to it that's paralyzing you, not the mountain itself. Think about that. Most of the time, the obstacle is just a situation. It's neutral. It's just life happening. But your mind turns it into a monster, a wall, a weight that feels impossible to lift. And that's why the first step in turning huge obstacles into small, manageable steps is to reframe your perspective. You have to decide what this challenge actually means. You get to choose. You get to decide if this obstacle is a dead end, a punishment, or a launch pad for growth. Because here's the reality, nothing grows without resistance. Every breakthrough, every victory, every transformation comes from leaning into what you once thought was impossible. So instead of saying, this is too big, I'll never make it, I want you to start asking, what is this teaching me? How can I use this to create the life I want? When you reframe the mountain, you take away its power. Suddenly, it's no longer this terrifying, immovable object standing in your way. It becomes a challenge, a puzzle, a game, an opportunity to prove to yourself how strong you really are. And when you do that, your brain shifts from fear to problem solving. Your energy changes. Your focus becomes clear, precise, and unstoppable. It's no longer about being crushed by the weight of the obstacle. It's about figuring out how to step up and move forward. Most people never get past this stage. They see the problem, they feel the fear, and they freeze. They believe the mountain is immovable. But what they don't realize is that the mountain only has as much power as they give it. It's like looking at a shadow and thinking it's a lion. But when you shine the light of perspective on it, the shadow disappears and you see the reality. It's just a rock in your path. You can step over it. You can move around it. You can break it down. But you have to start with your mind. The battle is always won or lost in here first. And here's the beautiful part. Once you begin to shift your mindset, everything changes. Suddenly, solutions that you couldn't see before become obvious. Opportunities appear where you thought there were none. Doors you thought were closed start to open. And the fear that once held you back begins to shrink because fear thrives in the unknown. And once you define the challenge in a way that makes sense to you, fear loses its grip. You stop imagining all the ways you could fail and start imagining all the ways you can succeed. So I want you to take a deep breath right now and make a decision. Decide that you are not going to be intimidated by the size of your obstacle. Decide that you are going to take control of the meaning you attach to it. You are going to see this challenge not as a stop sign, but as a stepping stone. You are going to see it not as a punishment, but as a powerful lesson designed to prepare you for something far greater than you ever imagined. Because when you do that, when you truly reframe the mountain in your mind, the impossible begins to feel possible. The overwhelming begins to feel manageable. And the path forward, which once seemed invisible, begins to appear. The first step in conquering your biggest challenges is not action, not strategy, not resources. It is your mind. It is the story you tell yourself. And once you change the story, the obstacle begins to shrink. You will start to see that the mountain you feared is not a wall meant to stop you, but a climb designed to elevate you. And every step you take after that becomes lighter, more confident, and unstoppable. Change the story, and the mountain is already conquered. Once you've changed the way you see the mountain, the next step is to stop trying to climb it all at once. You see, most people fail not because the challenge is too big, but because they try to swallow it whole. They look at the mountain and say, I have to conquer this entire thing today or I'll never make it. That's how overwhelm creeps in. That's how fear takes over. The truth is, no giant leap is ever made in a single bound. Every massive achievement, every great victory starts with one small deliberate step. The trick is learning to break the impossible into what I like to call manageable steps. Think about it. When a task seems huge, it paralyzes you. Your brain sees the whole thing and says, this is too much, I can't handle it. But when you take that same task and break it down into simple, achievable actions, suddenly the mountain becomes a series of small hills you can climb one at a time. You can handle one step. You can focus on one move. And as you do, momentum starts to build. Momentum is everything. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it's small. It's just a little push. But as it rolls, it gathers speed, it gains mass, and before long, it's unstoppable. That's exactly what happens when you focus on daily, measurable progress instead of the overwhelming whole. You start accomplishing things no matter how small, and those accomplishments give you energy, confidence, and clarity. Each tiny step is proof that you are capable. Each step is evidence that the mountain isn't as intimidating as you once thought. Now, the key is to get specific. Don't just say, I'll make progress today. Say, today, I will do this one thing. Make it measurable, make it visible, write it down, track it. Because there's nothing more powerful than seeing the evidence of your movement. When you can point to something and say, I did this. I move forward. Your mind can no longer argue that the challenge is too big. You've already taken action. You've already proven to yourself that you are capable. And here's where most people miss it. They focus on perfection. They think every step has to be perfect or it doesn't count. But progress doesn't require perfection. Progress requires action, one step at a time, imperfect steps, wobbly steps, steps you might stumble through, but steps nonetheless. And with each imperfect step, you learn, you adjust. You get stronger, you become more confident. Mountain begins to shrink not because it physically changes, but because your ability to move through it grows. Breaking things down also changes your relationship with fear. When you face the whole mountain at once, fear paralyzes. But when you focus on one small achievable step, fear becomes manageable. It becomes a guide, not a jailer. You start asking, what's the very next thing I can do? Instead of letting your mind spiral into, I'll never make it. And every time you take that next small action, the fear loses its grip. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to trust the process. You begin to see that progress is inevitable when you commit to moving even slowly. Consistency is what turns small steps into unstoppable results. One step might feel insignificant, but when you take that step every day, the cumulative effect is extraordinary. It's not the single step that changes your life. It's the repeated steps over time. Each day you move, each day you act. You're stacking wins on top of wins. You're building momentum, confidence, and clarity. The mountain you once feared is no longer an obstacle. It becomes a series of choices you can manage, a path you can follow, a journey you can conquer. So I want you to see this clearly. You do not have to leap to the top today. You do not have to solve everything at once. You do not have to have the perfect plan or the perfect timing. What you have to do is focus on the next step in front of you. Take it, then take the next, and keep going. The mountain will shrink. Not because it becomes smaller, but because your steps make you stronger, smarter, and unstoppable. Small, consistent steps are the bridge between where you are now and where you want to be. They are the way you take control over what feels impossible. They are the engine that turns overwhelm into clarity, fear into action, and obstacles into opportunities. Start with the next step and let it lead you forward. When people talk about obstacles, they often talk about fear, doubt, frustration, and overwhelm like they are enemies to be avoided. And most people spend their lives trying to run from them, push them away, or pretend they don't exist. But here's the truth. The emotions you feel in the face of a challenge are not your enemy. They are signals, raw energy that can either paralyze you or propel you forward. The difference is entirely in how you use them. Most people let fear freeze them. They let doubt stop them. They let frustration make them quit. But you are going to learn to turn that energy into fuel, not friction. Think about it. Every emotion you feel is energy in motion. Fear is energy, doubt is energy, frustration is energy. And energy, by its very nature, is neutral. It will do exactly what you direct it to do. You can let it trap you, or you can harness it. You can let it stop you, or you can let it drive you. The moment you decide to stop resisting your feelings and start using them, everything changes. Suddenly, fear isn't a cage, it's a signal. It's your body saying, pay attention. This matters. And when you pay attention and act despite it, fear becomes a compass pointing you toward growth. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think that being strong means not feeling anything. They think that courage is the absence of fear. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is taking action in spite of it. And the only way to act in spite of fear is to feel it fully, understand it, and then choose to channel it. Imagine if every time you felt doubt, instead of letting it stop you, you asked, what is this doubt trying to tell me? How can I use it to prepare, to sharpen, to strategize? Suddenly, doubt is no longer a chain around your ankle. It's a tool sharpening your mind, refining your approach, making you smarter, stronger, and more resilient. Frustration works the same way. Frustration is the body's way of saying something isn't working. Adjust. Most people let frustration push them into anger, despair, or giving up. But if you learn to transform that energy, frustration becomes momentum. It becomes a driving force that pushes you to find new solutions, try harder, and refuse to settle for anything less than progress. Every emotion has a purpose, and when you learn to harness them, you start turning what once felt like a burden into power. You also have to recognize that the intensity of your emotions is a measure of how much potential you have. If the obstacle doesn't bother you, it won't move you. If it doesn't stir something inside you, it won't activate the fire that lives within you. The very discomfort you feel, the very fear that grips you, the very doubt that creeps in, it is the evidence that you are standing at the edge of growth. These emotions are not warnings to retreat. They are signals that you are about to stretch, evolve, and step into a new level of yourself. And when you use that energy intentionally, it becomes unstoppable momentum. So how do you do it? You do it by consciously deciding to reframe your emotional state. You do it by refusing to be a victim of your feelings. You acknowledge them, but you do not obey them blindly. You convert the energy of fear into preparation, into focus, into relentless action. You convert doubt into inquiry, curiosity, and learning. You convert frustration into determination, strategy, and persistence. This is how ordinary people start to achieve extraordinary things. This is how obstacles that once felt impossible start to crumble beneath your feet. And here's the secret most people will never tell you. The power is not in eliminating emotions, it's in mastering them. It's in using the energy that others waste in panic and worry and avoidance and redirecting it toward action. Every obstacle, every challenge, every huge mountain is loaded with emotional energy. The people who fail are the ones who let it push them backward. The people who succeed are the ones who let it push them forward. This is why emotional mastery is not optional, it is essential. If you want to turn huge obstacles into small steps, you must first learn to turn fear into fuel, doubt into clarity, and frustration into unstoppable energy. Once you do that, the mountain no longer feels unmovable. Every step forward becomes easier. Every challenge becomes a chance to grow stronger. And every obstacle is transformed into a stepping stone toward the life you are destined to create. Decide today that you will no longer let your emotions control you. Decide that you will use them as the energy they were meant to be. Decide that fear, doubt, and frustration will become the fire that powers your climb. The energy is yours. Use it, and nothing can stop you. One of the biggest mistakes people make when facing a huge obstacle is thinking they have to do it all alone. They believe that if they can't figure it out themselves, they're weak, they're failing, or they're not capable. But the truth is, no one conquers mountains entirely on their own. The people who achieve extraordinary things, the ones who take what seems impossible and turn it into reality, they don't rely solely on willpower or luck. They study, they learn, they model. They look for someone who has already done what they want to do, and they ask, how did they do it? Modeling someone who has been there before is not copying blindly. It's about understanding the strategies, the mindset, the approach that worked, and adapting it to your situation. Think about it. If someone has already faced the storm, climbed the mountain, or turned an overwhelming challenge into a small, achievable series of steps, why waste years struggling alone? There is power in learning from the paths that already exist. There is strength in standing on the shoulders of people who have gone before you. It accelerates your progress. It saves you from unnecessary pain, and it gives you the confidence that what you're trying to do is possible. When you model someone, you are not removing your individuality. You are not taking shortcuts that undermine your growth. You are learning the map before you start the journey. Imagine trying to navigate a dense forest without a compass or a guide. You might eventually make it through, but it could take years. You could get lost, and you could waste an enormous amount of energy. Now imagine following someone who has already cleared the path. You still have to walk it, still have to climb every hill, but the path is visible. You can see the markers, avoid the pitfalls, and take each step with purpose and clarity. And here's something powerful. Modeling isn't just about strategy, it's about mindset. When you study someone who has faced what you're facing, you see the way they think, the way they respond to setbacks, the way they turn fear into fuel and obstacles into stepping stones. You internalize their confidence, their resilience, their focus. It becomes contagious. You begin to realize that if they could do it, so can you. The mountain starts to shrink before you even take your first step because you now know it is climbable. Most people underestimate the value of this. They think they need to reinvent the wheel. They look at someone else's success and feel envy, jealousy, inadequacy instead of curiosity. But the truth is the fastest way to progress is to adopt what works, adapt it to your life, and execute it relentlessly. You are not stealing, you are learning. You are not copying, you are building your own version of mastery. Every obstacle becomes less intimidating when you have a blueprint to guide you. And here's where modeling really transforms your journey. It changes the way you see failure. When you watch someone else succeed, you also see the mistakes they made, the setbacks they endured, and the persistence they required to reach their goal. You realize that failure is not a dead end, it's part of the process. And suddenly, the fear of failure doesn't paralyze you anymore. You have already seen that the climb is possible, even with mistakes along the way. You have proof that perseverance, strategy, and consistency work. It also teaches you to act with precision. When you're navigating a huge obstacle, energy alone is not enough. You need direction, you need insight, you need to know which steps to take first, which actions will create momentum, and which pitfalls to avoid. By modeling someone who has done it before, you gain this insight without unnecessary trial and error. You gain the ability to focus your energy where it matters most, to move faster and to make every effort count. So I want you to see this clearly. You do not have to invent everything yourself. You do not have to stumble blindly. You do not have to endure unnecessary suffering just to prove you're capable. Find someone who has faced the challenge, who has climbed the mountain, who has turned the impossible into possible. Study them, learn from them, and then take action. Adapt what works to your situation, apply it relentlessly, and watch as the path forward becomes clear with every step. Remember, modeling is not a shortcut to success. It's a fast track to mastery. It allows you to stand taller, move faster, and face the mountain with confidence instead of fear. And when you apply what you've learned to your own journey, the mountain stops feeling impossible and starts feeling like a challenge you are fully prepared to conquer. Look for the path that already exists, and then walk it with courage, focus, and unstoppable determination. Now let's talk about your environment. Most people underestimate how much their surroundings shape their ability to take action, overcome challenges, and move forward. The truth is, the people you spend time with, the space you occupy, the distractions you allow in your life, they all either lift you up or hold you back. You could have the clearest strategy, the strongest mindset, and the unshakable desire to succeed, but if your environment is not aligned with your goals, it will quietly, steadily drain your energy and your focus. And when that happens, even the smallest obstacle starts to feel like a mountain. Your environment doesn't just affect your actions, it affects your identity. If you are constantly surrounded by doubt, negativity, or excuses, you begin to absorb that energy. Your thinking starts to mirror what you see and hear. Your confidence erodes without you even realizing it. On the other hand, When your environment supports your growth, when it encourages action, focus, and positivity, you start to become the person capable of overcoming any obstacle. You start to think bigger, move faster, and take bold steps because the world around you reinforces your progress instead of sabotaging it. That's why the first step in building an empowering environment is simplification. Remove the clutter, both physical and mental. Clear your workspace, clear your calendar, clear your mind of unnecessary distractions. When your environment is simple and organized, your energy is free to focus on the steps that matter. Every distraction you eliminate is another ounce of mental strength added to your capacity to act. Every unnecessary interruption removed is another chance to make progress without friction. Next, you must cultivate a network of support. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, challenge you, and hold you accountable. Seek out those who have the mindset you want to embody, the success you aim to achieve, and the resilience you are trying to develop. When you place yourself in the orbit of these individuals, their energy becomes contagious. You begin to adopt their habits, their focus, and their confidence. And even when the obstacle seems insurmountable, the support of the right people reminds you that you are not facing it alone. They become your mirror, reflecting what is possible back to you. Environment also means routine. The most successful people don't rely on motivation alone. They create systems that make progress inevitable. They structure their days, they prioritize the steps that matter most, and they remove decision fatigue wherever possible. When your day is aligned with your goals, when your actions are guided by a routine designed for success, obstacles feel smaller because your momentum carries you through. You don't have to rely on willpower alone. You have a structure that supports action and makes consistent progress almost automatic. But creating an empowering environment isn't just about removing negatives, it's also about adding positives. Fill your space with inspiration, with reminders of why you are climbing this mountain. Read books that motivate you, listen to messages that push you forward, keep symbols or objects around that remind you of your goals and your potential. These cues reinforce the mindset you need to turn obstacles into manageable steps. They keep your focus on the outcome, your energy high, and your drive consistent. Small environmental triggers, strategically placed, can have a massive impact on your ability to act and persevere. Now, here's the part most people miss. Your environment must be dynamic. It's not a one-time setup. It requires attention, adjustment, and discipline. As you progress, as your goals evolve, as your obstacles change, your environment must evolve too. You must be intentional about what you let in and what you keep out. You must continually optimize your surroundings so that they accelerate your growth rather than slowing it down. And when you do this consistently, the obstacles that once seemed impossible begin to shrink simply because your environment is now aligned with your success. Think of your environment like a current in a river. If you swim against it, you expend enormous energy and progress slowly. If you swim with it, the current propels you forward effortlessly. Your environment can either be that current, helping you move faster toward your goals, or it can be the resistance that wears you down. The choice is yours, but the impact is undeniable. Every step forward becomes easier when your environment removes resistance instead of creating it. Every challenge becomes more manageable because your space, your people, and your routines are aligned with action. When you design your environment with intention, you create a natural advantage that compounds over time. Obstacles that once paralyzed you now feel like small hills because everything around you is supporting your climb, not fighting against it. So take a look around you, evaluate what in your life is helping you rise and what is holding you back. Remove the negatives, amplify the positives, and create a space that makes your success inevitable. Design your environment, and your obstacles will no longer control you. Now let's talk about celebration. Most people think they have to wait for the big win to feel accomplished. They think, once I've climbed the whole mountain, I can be proud. Once I've conquered this massive challenge, I can finally feel successful. But that mindset is dangerous because it delays fulfillment, it delays confidence, and it delays momentum. The truth is, you do not need the entire victory to build the belief that you are capable. Confidence is not born in the final outcome. It is forged in the micro wins you achieve along the way. Every small victory, every step forward, every obstacle you overcome, no matter how tiny, is proof that you are moving in the right direction. When you start celebrating micro wins, something powerful happens. Your perception of the mountain changes. What once seemed impossible begins to feel manageable. When you focus on each small step completed rather than the enormity of the entire challenge, your brain begins to see possibility everywhere. Your confidence builds naturally, not artificially. Every small win becomes a brick in the foundation of unshakable belief in yourself. And the beauty of it is that this belief compounds. One small win leads to another, and before long, the mountain you feared is no longer a wall, it's a path that you are already climbing. Micro wins are not just about recognition, they are about feedback. Every time you achieve a step, you learn something new. You see what works, what doesn't, and what you need to adjust. You gather information, you refine your approach, and you grow stronger with every effort. The process becomes your teacher. You begin to trust your ability to navigate challenges because you have the evidence right in front of you. You have succeeded before and you can do it again. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle of progress. The more wins you celebrate, the more momentum you generate, the more capable you feel, and the more you are able to tackle the next step with confidence. The key is consistency. One micro win is powerful, but the real transformation happens when you stack them every day. You cannot rely on a single moment of success to sustain you. It's the accumulation of small, deliberate actions that builds unstoppable momentum. Each day, each task, each small action becomes a stepping stone. You begin to see that the journey is not defined by one giant leap, but by the consistent, relentless effort you put in over time. And as your small victories add up, the mountain starts to shrink before your eyes. What was once overwhelming is now a series of achievable steps, each one bringing you closer to your goal. Another incredible benefit of celebrating micro wins is the emotional lift it provides. Progress, no matter how small, fuels your energy, your enthusiasm, and your drive. It creates a sense of forward motion that is contagious. When you acknowledge your wins, you are sending a message to your mind: I am capable. I am making progress. I am unstoppable. This emotional boost propels you to take the next step, the next action, the next leap forward. And even when challenges arise, you are strengthened by the knowledge that you have already proven to yourself you can succeed. Most people underestimate the power of recognition. They think it's trivial to pause and acknowledge a small accomplishment, but this simple act reinforces the habit of action. It reinforces belief. It reinforces momentum. When you celebrate micro wins, you are training your brain to focus on progress rather than perfection, on growth rather than fear, and on possibility rather than limitation. This shift in focus is what turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. And here's the secret: confidence is not something you wait to have. Confidence is something you create. Every micro win, every step forward, every challenge you overcome builds the muscle of belief. You are literally shaping the way you see yourself step by step. You are constructing a foundation of self-trust so strong that no obstacle, no setback, no mountain can shake it. When you reach the final peak, the victory feels inevitable, not miraculous, because you have already proven day after day, step after step, that you are capable of achieving it. So don't wait for the big win. Don't postpone your celebration until the end. Recognize every victory along the way. Cherish each step forward. Build confidence through consistent action. Let the small wins remind you of your strength, your resilience, and your ability to overcome any challenge. Because when you do, the obstacles that once seemed overwhelming start to look small. The path that once seemed impossible becomes clear, and the life you imagined becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Stack your wins, trust the process, and let confidence guide every step you take.